Hello, Mixed Nutcases. This is Nuke Joss, and I've got a special guest with me.
Hey, this is Miss Melissa, the Bathtub Mermaid.
So excited to have you on here today. Today we're going to be talking about Agatha All Along, the Disney Plus series that is a spin-off, sort of, from WandaVision. But if you've read the comics, Agatha is her own character. But so we're going to be talking about Agatha All Along. It's been out for
It came out
months, but
it finished in October.
Yeah, it finished in October. So we're going to start with a spoiler-free section, and then we will get to the spoiler version. So when we get ready for spoilers, we're going to let you know so that you can hit stop if you haven't watched this already. And if you don't care about spoilers and you just want to listen, that's okay too. We just want to be respectful of everyone listening. So Agatha All Along. I'm going to say that I watched it pretty close to as it was coming out. There were, maybe I was a week or two behind, but I was pretty close to as it was coming out. And so I was watching it each week, an episode each week. And at first I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like this. I'm not sure I was all aboard the Agatha All Along train. But then I saw Patti LuPone was in it. And I was like, And then I saw Sashir Zamata was in it. I was like, And then as I was starting to see like the different people that were in it, I was like, you know what? Let's give it a go. And I also started hearing people talking about how much they liked it. And so I was like, okay. So I was watching it pretty weekly. And then as it went along, to me, it just got better and better and better. And I think the big thing that I liked was the, strong female relationships and going into those relationships. I think that's what I liked so much about this. But I'm going to hold off on all of that. And Melissa, what was your experience with watching this?
Okay, well, we have a rule in my house that if it's a Marvel series, we have to watch it together. So while we did start watching it almost immediately, and I was really anticipating it because I loved her episode of WandaVision. I was really curious to see where it went. I have not read the comic. So for me, this is my only experience with Agatha, and I'm super happy with it. But like you, the first couple of episodes, I was really I'm not sure I even want to continue. I'm not connecting to it. And then Patti LuPone showed up. And I was like, okay, well, I can't not watch Patti LuPone because that would be criminal. I'm a musical theater kid. I would have to give back my musical theater card if I didn't watch her. That would be bad. And then just as you felt, as it went along, it got better and better. We did not binge it. We watched it an episode at a time over. We watched the first half and then we got busy and distracted and forgot to watch it. And then you said, hey, let's record this. And I was like, oh crap, I have to finish it now. But I was delighted by the whole back half.
Yeah. It just got better and better.
It got better and better. And the cast, as you said, was amazing.
Their chemistry was so good.
And I really liked that. And I don't know if people are even paying attention to this, but there's really only one male in the cast.
Yeah. And
I mean, there are male characters who are
in the cast, and he's queer. So
and he's queer, right? And he's awesome.
Not that does not make him male, but it's another positive.
It is another positive. In fact, the whole thing was just so delightfully queer and accepting that I really liked that. It wasn't like a message. It wasn't, oh, hey, let's make sure we get this demographic. It just seemed really organic.
Yeah, exactly. I also, one of the things that I kept seeing was, I would see, Aubrey Plaza talk about her relationship with Patti LuPone that sparked from filming this before I even started seeing the show. So I was like, I need to see what made this. And then I was expecting them to have like a really, no, they just had a good relationship on set. But I was like really excited. If you haven't seen those, you should see. It's just such a great generational gap friendship.
It's really very heartwarming, their friendship. But now, I also got a kick out of the stories that were like, Patti LuPone has never watched anything Marvel. She didn't quite understand what was going on, but that totally worked for her character.
Yes, it really did. And she's so good. Now, I do know that she has a bit of a reputation in the theater community as being difficult. And what I have heard, and I'm not going to cite my source, but what I have heard from somebody who works in community theater is that when she came to their theater and was not community theater like volunteer, like it's still paid theater, but like a off Broadway outside of New York, New York City thing. That when she came to their theater, she was a delight. She was wonderful. And she had said, had complimented on how professional they were because they were over the top, really, really careful because they did not want to piss her off. And that apparently, she just has really high standards. And if you are high in those standards and you do what you're supposed to do, like it didn't matter that they're a small theater. It was their professionalism and their, how they handled themselves and how they treated talent and crew and everyone else. And that if you don't have that high standard, she might make your theater a living hell, which I'm okay with.
I have a former classmate from high school who is a Broadway performer. And again, I'm not going to name her either. I'll tell you privately. I'm not going to name her because it would sound like name dropping. And while we were good classmates, but we are not the best of friends. But sometimes we chat on IM as you do. And she's worked with Patti LuPone. She's worked with everybody at this point. And she had the same thing. She said, when I first met her, I had heard her reputation that she is difficult. What she is she demands respect, and she demands that you treat her with knowing the body of work that she has and the experience that she has, that you give her credit for what she's done and what she's learned, and she knows what she's doing.
Yeah.
So she does have very high standards, but she's not like a
collard greens.
Anything.
No. Oh, now I got to edit.
I'm sorry.
See, even the bathtub mermaid can mess this up.
I come from a world where that's not an editable word. I'm sorry.
It's fine. It's fine.
Do you want me to restate that so you can put something in its place?
No, I'm going to throw in taco or burrito. Come on.
Oh, yeah. Taco's good.
Yeah. So
she's not a crunchy taco.
So it's, I was really delighted in all of that. And I loved her performance. I really did like the Agatha, when you discovered who Agatha was in WandaVision. But once we got into the light show, I was like, oh, a little over the top. But I also didn't need the musical side of it in WandaVision, but I liked the music stuff in this show. It made more sense in this show.
Well, again, it's organic, but it also comes from a history of women in general singing as they work, singing to build community, singing as a way of expressing things that you couldn't just say. Yeah. So I felt that it was really fitting to use a song as the through line for the whole thing.
Yeah. So one of the things that, so you were saying that you and Fuzzy watch Marvel movies together.
Yes.
For Tech and I, usually it's let's start them together. If he wants to continue, we'll continue. He was out on WandaVision. So I was like, you're not going to want to watch Agatha. He was out. I think he would have enjoyed, and this was my main criticism of WandaVision. If you listen to the, Nerds with Voices, Talk Nerdy to Me, whichever episode it was, about WandaVision, my big criticism is they could have played it in order. They didn't have to do the jumping around. That the jumping around was making things overly complicated, that it didn't need. I think it would have been a better story if we watched it straight through. We didn't need to wait till very late to figure out who this Monica person was and things like that. But that said, so I went into this. I didn't even include Tech in watching this one. But it was nice because it meant I didn't have to wait for him to watch it. So I didn't have any of that. I will tell you, we are still 2 episodes from finishing Secret Invasion. Like things happen, other shows happen, or you just don't want to focus on anything too serious. So, when you have to watch with someone, it can change your watching.
It can also change your perspective because you're getting their opinion in your ear the whole time. Mm-hmm. And Fuzzy and I usually agree on things, but not always. And I mean, obviously he's Midwestern male and I'm not. So we have that difference of perspective as well.
What did he think of Agatha?
He liked it. He enjoyed it, but I don't think it was anything more to him than just a nice entertainment.
Yeah. I was thinking about how Agatha kind of hits women, middle-aged women, just different communities.
Is this the point where we have to confess or admit that we're actually middle-aged now?
Oh, I've confessed many times. I'll
confess it, but I get to define what middle-aged means for me, right?
Yeah. Look, my family lives to be 100, so yeah.
Yeah, that's
I'm
fair.
Good with this.
We both still have amazing skin, so I think we should just go with it.
But and age does not bother me. I mean, if you saw my mother, which by the way is going to end up on the podcast. Yes, my mom is going to come on the podcast.
So cool.
Yeah. So when you hear Gma introduced, that's what she wants her podcast name to be, is Gma, which is what most of her grandkids call her. But she like age is nothing. But it does hit, it hits a little differently. And I remember when we watched Wonder Woman in the theaters, and, I talking to a lot of men, they're like, oh, it was good, but it didn't hit them in the same way that it did for a lot of women, especially seeing, the women fighting and not having wrinkles bleared out, having lines on their skin, having cellulite show, like
having the whole first 30 minutes without one line of male dialogue.
Yes.
I loved that.
All of this.
Don't get me wrong. I love men. I especially love the men in my life, but
yeah.
It's nice to have female centered things once in a while that aren't just fashion and hair.
Yes. And when the world is catering to one specific audience, having something that is representative of your experience, it matters. Representation matters. And I think
absolutely.
I hate to equate like struggles, one struggle to another, but I think if anyone has experienced how watching something like this is such a different perspective, think about the other perspectives that are not your own and why those pieces of representation matter so much. That it might not have been your thing, like maybe Black Panther was not your 100%, you loved it the most, but think about how that might have impacted the communities that was representing. Or, when you're talking about LGBTQ representation, think about how that is impacting those communities or the disabled communities or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
It also means that even if you can't totally connect with the perspective, you can still have empathy and appreciate a new perspective.
Yeah. And you can learn more about those other
Absolutely.
perspectives.
And you're learning it through something fun and interesting rather than being hands-fed stuff from a textbook.
Exactly. So I'm like dead on. Absolutely. This is why I wanted to talk about this series in particular. Like I didn't want to do just a quick dinner and a movie, 5-10 minute episode talking about it, because it really did matter so much to me. Those relationships, and there's so much like with the witchcraft of, Mother Maiden Crone, all the different the different archetypes that they explore.
I love that. And I love that they had everyone represented.
Yeah. So to me, that was super duper important. Now,
yes.
Do you need to watch WandaVision to watch this, do you think?
I don't think so. I think it stands really well on its own. I think having watched WandaVision, it made me more aware of Agatha as like anyone who existed, because again, I didn't read those comics.
Yeah.
But I don't think that backstory was necessary. I think they gave us enough information.
Yeah. I think the only thing would be the whole
it does help with teens storyline. But the rest of it, not so much.
Well, and maybe the first episode, knowing who all those people are.
Yes, I can see that.
Yeah. So in the comics, Agatha Harkness was introduced as an ally to the Fantastic Four.
Okay.
Which is very interesting to me.
Yeah.
But
she's never been in a Fantastic Four movie.
No. No, and also the Fantastic Four have not been done by Marvel.
That's true.
They are going to do one, but yeah. And
that will be interesting.
I feel like I'm going to have to do an episode when the new one comes out from Marvel.
Definitely.
I will admit I did not watch the more recent one with I think Michael B. Jordan's as Johnny Storm. I only watched the original ones that, Chris Evans and Jessica Alba were in, and Michael Chiklis.
Yes.
But that is one of the first things that I podcasted on.
Really?
Way back when on Sci-Fi Dig, I got
cool.
to see the movies in preview.
Oh, nice.
And I don't think it was the first one. I think was Silver Surfer? I don't know if it was the first one or if it was Silver Surfer, but I did like a whole piece on it. And I think that was the first one. That's what started me doing movie reviews, because I used to get preview tickets.
Uh-huh.
When I was in New York, there was a local radio station that you could you could get like prizes for all sorts of things. And then through that, I met, basically when they were putting out previews, you just call up and it'd be like a Wednesday or a Thursday. Mm-hmm. And you didn't know until the day of if you were getting tickets, but you could just get tickets. And I saw a bunch of movies that way, and I could get, like 2-3 tickets, whatever I wanted. And very rarely could I get somebody at last minute to come with me. So a lot of times I went and I saw the movies alone, and then I did a movie review for them. But I do remember bringing, some friends. I think I brought my sister to 2 of them. I think, Music and Lyrics was one, and I can't remember if it was, is it Stranger Than Fiction? The Will Ferrell movie and Emma Thompson. Yeah. I was able to bring
that was a fun film
to some of those.
That was a fun film. Those are both fun films.
Those were actually really good. I liked those. Yeah, and so, but it was a Fantastic Four movie. Was the very first segment I did so all
cool.
on my own.
So then when the new one comes out, you have to do it.
I feel like I do. But does that mean that I have to also go back and watch the other one?
Only if you want to.
I mean, it might be worth for comparison.
I mean, you're reviewing a movie. You should review the movie that you're seeing, not its whole history.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. We'll see. Listeners, let me know. What do you think?
Fair question.
But back to Agatha. All along. Yes. I do want to say, one of the things that I liked about WandaVision were the references to classic TV. It felt like she was jumping through Nick at Night.
It absolutely did.
Apparently where all of that was filmed was on, the Warner Brothers Ranch. And the, set is in the house that Agatha lives on is the house that, was used in Bewitched.
Oh, that's too perfect.
And apparently it's been demolished now, but yeah.
Oh, of course it has. It's something else now, I'm sure.
But yeah, she lives in the exact house that they used for Bewitched, which I think
that's too perfect.
I think that is just perfectly awesome. I really did enjoy kind of seeing the people from before.
Yes.
And when we get into the spoiler territory, I will talk about one of the characters from the previous show. But I want to talk a little bit about the cast. So I have always liked Catherine Hahn. I think she was on some procedural when I first saw her. And I've
Crossing Jordan.
Yes, that's it. Crossing Jordan.
That is where I first watched her.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking she's going to be a star because she's stealing every scene she's in.
She was so good. And she
was good. She is good. She will continue to be good. She can play. She has such range. She can do serious. She can do comic. She can do pathos. Mm-hmm. I'm just, every time I see her in something new, I am more and more impressed by her talent.
Yeah. And she, I think has such range that she can do the glib, do the I'm just a baddie, and then also make you feel for her.
Absolutely.
And make you understand where she's coming from. Now, do you have any experience with Sashir Zamata? The one that
I really don't.
Jennifer? Okay. I know
but
her.
I want to.
I know her from podcasts.
Oh.
And a couple of other things, but, Nicole Byer has a podcast called The Best Friends Podcast.
Okay.
I don't listen to it anymore, but I used to listen to it a lot. And it was her and Sashir because they are best friends.
Oh, that's so cool.
It's a great show. They bring on other best friends and they chat and talk about things. But
that's awesome.
I have always liked Sashir from that. So every time that I would see her in something, I was like, oh, I want to see this. So I really liked her from that. I did not know when I was watching it. So the actress playing Alice, Ali On.
Yes.
I felt like I knew her, but every time I look her up, I can't quite figure out.
I knew her from The Diplomat and I knew her from Liberal Arts, which are the two things that are like her featured things other than Agatha, if you look her up on IMDb. But I actually knew her from those, but I didn't know her name. I was just like, oh, right. She's that woman who was in that thing that I enjoyed her performance. But yeah, so getting to see her in something that was, 9 episodes and all of the meat that she had was really cool.
Yeah. She was in 3 episodes of Supernatural. I didn't see either of those. She was in 3 episodes of Supernatural. She was in 3 episodes of Orange is the New Black.
She really is that woman who is in that thing.
Yeah. And
she is a steadily working character actress, and we need more of those.
Yes. Well, and what I like is she's different than most Asian actresses that you see on TV.
Yeah.
And that I want to see more of that, more realistic Asian actresses,
She absolutely never plays to the stereotype. She's just a person.
Yeah. And she's not the cutesy poo, whatever. She has like some substance and she can play a BAMF, like for real.
Oh yeah, she can.
When you find out that she's a cop or was a cop, you're like, oh yeah, I believe it.
Absolutely. I had no problem with that at all. I was right there. Oh yeah, that totally makes sense for that character.
Yeah. Patti LuPone, we've already glossed on about how much we love her.
Yes.
And that she is a draw. Deborah Jo Rupp, I love her. I have always loved her. I
have always loved her. She always brings such wacky authenticity to everything. I can't talk. I'm sorry. I'm stuffy. Okay. I love that she's always just a little bit off kilter. But she's right there. But everything she does is so real. It never seems staged. It never seems fake. Her reactions are perfect.
And you feel like she could beat you up. Like she's a tiny little package, but she could.
I am fairly certain that she would like knock you out of this world with a swing of that purse.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And not in a stereotypical like, oh, she's swinging her purse way. Like this is a weapon.
And she knows how to use it. Who are we talking about? Deborah Jo Rupp. She's Mrs. Foreman from That 70s Show and a million other things, but I think that's where most people will remember her.
She is a sitcom legend.
Yes, she is amazing. And honestly, to me, what made that show work was Kitty and Red.
Yes.
That the teens, there's some real talent there, but without Kitty and Red, like that show would not have been as good. And when they tried to do, and Paul Mackey will attest to this because he reported on it and you can listen to those episodes on nimlast.org. Or maybe they're on YouTube. I can't remember, but whatever. Just look for One Idiot Cast. When they tried to do that 80s show and they didn't have them.
It wasn't as good.
It wasn't as good and it kind of bombed. But now that they started doing that 90s show and they do have them, it actually works, even though the kids are just like with the original show. They're just kind of starting their careers and, they're not the actors that they might become. And we'll leave everything else about that show and a particular actor and everything else aside because all of that's gross. But
it's not relevant to what we're talking about.
Yeah, not relevant because I really like her acting. Now Audrey Plaza, I did not watch Parks and Rec. I tried
didn't
to.
Either.
I started with the first season. Finally, everybody told me how great it was. I could not get into it. I downloaded, I think, the first 10 episodes and I was just like, I'm bored. Like I really pushed because everybody loves it so much and I couldn't get into it.
So
Sorry.
Parks and Rec has an amazing cast and they are all people who many of them are actors I've enjoyed in other things. And I think I watched like one episode and it's not that I didn't like it or was bored. It was just like, not like actively bored. It was just like, oh, okay, well, I'll watch this when I run out of other things I have to watch.
Yeah. And I've seen clips, and there are some clips that are quite funny, but I just can't watch a whole show.
Yeah.
But I really do like Aubrey Plaza. And sometimes I have felt that she's one note and she only does the same character. But I've seen her in a couple of different movies, rather. I've seen her in a bunch of movies where she branches out. I think this role is probably her most dynamic.
Definitely.
She's more than one note. She is not just the bored, unaffected teen. You know, she's kind of matured into who she is.
I would agree. I would absolutely agree. I think she showed a lot of range in Agatha. I think that she also showed a lot of humanity and depth that we don't often see from her.
Yeah.
Like there was a person behind those eyes. And
it was really great to see from that character as well. Yes. Because the character, you weren't quite sure what was going on. And then you realized the depth of what that character was going through. Yeah. So I think that she was awesome. Honestly, teen, I could take or leave him. I don't know him from anything.
I mean, he's a young actor. He's just, he's not really done anything that's like, that would be on our radar that's super famous. Yeah. I think he did a solid performance. But
he did quite fine. I guess he was in some show called Heartstopper,
which I've never seen.
The only other credit he has on IMDb.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's a young actor. He's just getting his start.
I actually might watch it because it looks good. It's a Netflix show, so I might not be able to. But basically it's a gay teen romance. Like,
well, that sounds like fun.
Yeah. Or a Netflix show. So, I mean, I'm fine with that. Like, I hope to see more from him. He did a great job.
I actually look forward to seeing him mature into his talent because you can tell that he's a very young actor, and it worked for the character because the character is also feeling his way during this whole thing. But
yeah, trying to figure out who he is.
And are we allowed to say that there's a season 2, or is that spoilery?
I didn't know that there was a season 2. So
there is going to be a season 2.
Oh,
so and he will be in it. So I am really looking forward to seeing how he develops.
That'll be interesting.
As a performer, as much as the character.
That'll be very interesting. All right. So I think we can move on to our spoiler section.
Oh, good, because it's really hard not to.
I know. So if you have not watched the show and you do not want to be spoiled, because we're going to talk about who teen is and who all these things and what all the secrets are, you're going to want to stop now. One, two, three. If you have not stopped the episode, you're going to get spoiled.
Continue at your peril.
Yes, at your own peril. Now, I know that you are the kind of person that you don't really care about spoilers.
For me, spoilers, for me, it's all about the execution. So knowing what happens doesn't bother me. And sometimes I feel like if it's a world that I am not super familiar with, I would rather know what's going on so I know what to watch for and what to pay attention to. But I know that most people aren't that way.
Yeah.
And I respect that.
Totally. I don't like to be spoiled too much, but I'm not like, oh my gosh, don't say anything or I'm going to be like, I mean, to, give me the gist.
I have friends who are like, I don't even know who's in it. I don't even want to know who's in it. And I think that's absurd. It's just silly.
Spoilers are not spoilers to me.
but the ththing is, if it's a whodunit and there's a big reveal and you don't want to know who did it, even I don't really want to know who did it. Yeah. If there's a big reveal happening, I want the surprise of the reveal.
Don't tell me that Bruce Willis is dead. Okay.
Because that spoils the whole premise of the movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in the case of Agatha, I managed to stay spoiler free. I was not trying to stay spoiler free. I just managed to stay spoiler free. And I think I enjoyed all the reveals more so.
I think that the internet was pretty respectful of the big twists and spoilers.
Again, I didn't go looking. And if you go look, you can find things.
When you're watching something that's coming out every week, sometimes it's hard to avoid those things.
It really is.
Like I knew Baby Yoda was a thing before I ever started The Mandalorian. People, we didn't know.
I'm pretty sure there were already dolls before we started watching it.
Yeah, but I mean, it wasn't supposed to be public knowledge.
Right.
You know, and people were, that was The Mandalorian was a hard time. It was like, I'm just going to ignore Facebook.
But I feel like you're right. With Agatha, it was, I mean, yes, Vulture was doing recaps, and yes, I have a subscription to that I forgot that I had. But so last night, I actually went through and skimmed some of their recaps to see if there was anything that they were talking about that I missed. And there wasn't.
Oh, good.
But I do enjoy their snark.
I think that, for me, the big thing that I liked about this show is the flashbacks. So remember my big criticism for WandaVision was things not being in order. What I liked about this was going back and seeing everyone's past.
But in this case, it worked because we met them at sort of, not even in media res, really, but sort of in the middle of their stories.
Yeah.
And then we flashed back to the beginning, and then we also got to see the end. So, but we needed those flashbacks for context, and they unfolded really naturally.
Yeah. Yeah. So Patti LuPone's character.
Okay.
Her backstory.
Her backstory. Like I said, when we were talking about her performance, and she said in interviews that she had no idea what was going on. Well, it worked for her character because her character is completely nonlinear.
Yeah. She is unstuck in time, to use Kurt Vonnegut.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And at first you think, oh, this is like her power giving her answers, because she just writes things down.
Right.
And tells them who to get. And then it's, as you're going through it, you're like, oh, maybe she's losing her grip on reality. And then when you start to see that she's moved, she jumped through a different time, you're like, oh, she's unstuck.
It all clicks into place, and you realize, okay, she knows this because she's seen it, but she doesn't know this because she hasn't seen it yet.
And then you also realize, like, okay, so she really is the oldest witch.
What, didn't they say she was like 400, but 460 or something like that?
I don't remember.
Because we saw the medieval Italy scenes.
Yes, we did.
Renaissance Italy.
Yeah, she does come back from like, yeah, she's definitely the oldest, because she's from, ancient Italy,
or at least she's got the oldest chronological life.
Yes. Agatha, we know, was around at least during like witch trials and pre-revolutionary
right
colonies. I don't know if we know when Jennifer is from.
I'm not sure we do.
Yeah, but we have an idea of some of the.
But obviously, she is not her apparent age.
No,
she's
none
much
of them
older.
are.
No,
actually, the oldest one would be Aubrey Plaza's character.
Well, yes, but that doesn't really count.
Yes. Because we find out that she's deaf.
And do we absolutely love that this whole thing, aside from being a Yellow Brick Road, Find Your Heart's Desire in witchcraft story, is also a love story between Agatha and Death?
Oh my gosh, yes. I freaking loved that.
I thought, because it was subtle at first, but then their snark was always so loaded. Every interaction they had was so loaded.
Yeah.
But you don't recognize how loaded until you get to the final 2 episodes.
But I think it's even more than that. It's they were lovers, and then it was,
yeah,
but she took her son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the layers of love and betrayal and backstabbing and literal stabbing and
yeah,
that level of passion, and they just explored it so well.
It was definitely something that I was here for, and I was very happy to see. Honestly, I think like all my media should be a little bit queer at this point.
I absolutely love that Agatha was telegraphing everything in her snark. Like that one line she had to Teen where she's like, hey, if you want a straight answer, ask a straight lady.
Yep. I thought that was great. So I also like, okay, so we'll get to Teen. All right. So Teen, we discover, because the whole time you're thinking, oh, is he actually Agatha's son? Because everybody's talking about how Agatha killed her son and you wouldn't recognize him and all this other stuff. And what it turns out is Agatha knows that her son is dead and can't be here. But she's kind of letting herself sort of believe it because she wants it to be true.
Yes, exactly. She wants it so badly that she's projecting it onto Teen.
And to the point that Rio at one point, who is Aubrey Plaza's death character, says, it's not him. You know it's not him. But the big mystery that makes Agatha actually interested in everybody kind of go, is the sigil that anytime Teen tries to tell people who he is,
he cannot.
It's blurred. He'll say it, but nobody will hear it.
Right.
And then you find out later that Lilia, Patti LuPone's character, is the one that did that to him.
Yes.
And so that is the crux of what makes everyone do it. And so to me, this is like, all right, when you're playing D&D, everybody creates their character and everybody often is like, my character's a loner. They don't want to do this. And they build these characters that would never form a party.
Doesn't it drive you crazy?
Yes. But this took all of those kinds of characters and said, you would never do it. Here's the reason you do it. And I thought that that was perfect. That is the perfect reason to compel everyone to party together.
If you have a decent justification, you can make anything happen. They had the perfect justification.
And I love how they all started as not friends, enemies. Nobody had alliances. Nobody wanted to team up with each other. And then they all kind of pull together. I do feel bad.
I don't think you can call them, I don't think you can call them friends at the end, but I think they were all sisters.
Yes, they were definitely, and they all kind of had an alliance. Like they all.
Oh yeah.
Because you can't not have that when you're seeing everyone's most intimate moments.
Because every trial was really a reveal of their true self.
Yep.
And their deepest secret and their worst pain.
Yep. And so the road.
The road.
Oh my gosh. I think
the yellow brick road were covered in muck.
I think that is the biggest mystery. Like, forget Teen. Okay, we didn't even talk about Teen. Sorry. So we discover that Teen is Wanda's kid, Billy.
Who isn't real.
Who isn't real. Like, Wanda, he's essentially Minerva if you think about it. Like, Wanda created her children.
That's true.
She wished
it to be so, right.
Sorry, I don't mean to speak over you.
She wished it to be true, so it became so.
Yeah. But like, everybody else in WandaVision, she converted. She made them something else.
Right.
They
but
were
the children
and
she created.
Yeah. She did the fairy godmother thing, you know, the pumpkin's a coach.
Exactly.
All these people are going to be something. But in the boys, she created something from nothing.
Yes.
That, you know, when you think about, you know, energy can't be created or destroyed. It can only be transferred. That's
Correct.
always been that idea of, magic in like the Marvel universe and comic books is, you know, magic is the transfer of energy. Whereas this is Wanda was not just a witch here. She was not just using magic. This was not just her power converting something. She's something else at this point. And so she created beings. She created souls.
She created souls. I think you could say that while it wasn't magic in the conventional sense, it was a combination of the desire to have a family, that deep desire to not be alone in the world, and also infinite mother love.
Yeah.
She needed someone to nurture.
So when everything went and the whole thing blew up, Billy's power, Billy's, you know, this piece of Wanda. I mean, I don't know. Did she create it? Maybe she didn't just create something new. Maybe it's a piece of Wanda. I don't know.
It could be a piece of her own soul.
That could be why her kids have some of her stuff.
But they also have a little bit of their father.
Yes, which is interesting.
It's very interesting. And we're not going to go into the physics of that.
Ship of Theseus. All right. So that went into this kid who just, you know, was just driving past, you know, he had just had a bar mitzvah. And becomes this other person, which, was very interesting. And it is what gets everyone together. And he learns about the road, which is supposed to be this road that witches go down, and your innermost desire will be
It
granted.
is exactly the yellow brick road, just covered in muck.
Yes.
Tarnished.
And like the yellow brick road's promise, it's a lie. It's a scam. It's a con.
It's the ultimate example of be careful what you wish for, because you might get it.
And the you know, when you actually go back to Agatha's past, you know, we had heard about her coven kicking her out. You'd heard about she killed her coven for the road, yada yada yada, all these things.
Right.
But it was a lie. It was a fake story from a song that she used to sing to her kid.
So that she could scam other witches into giving her their power.
Because that was her power. Her power has always been taking other witches' power.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I think that is the most wild.
I think it's wild, but it also makes total sense.
Mm-hmm.
And if, like, I think if we were going to go back and rewatch it, we would probably see the evidence of that, but we weren't connecting it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think, go ahead.
The other thing is, when you go back and watch, you remember that the glowing light around the door was vision blue.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't Wanda red. It was blue.
Yeah, it was vision blue. Interesting. I loved every piece of that. I think that it's kind of the whole time that she's doing it, though, and she's like, she knows it's not real, but she's doing it because she's like, okay, it's here. But
it's real to them. The others believe that it's real, and so she's just, you know, profiting from their belief.
Absolutely. And I think intentionally she intended to go in to get all of their powers.
Oh, absolutely.
And then it actually became real. I think one of my favorite things. Oh, and we'll also talk about the other reveal that Jen's powers were taken from her and she was sealed because Agatha did it.
Yes.
For somebody else, not knowing what it was about.
Right.
And it was
she
such
was
a harsh
hired
betrayal.
magic sucking mercenary.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it was such a betrayal. That to me was wild. But what I loved is how every one of the houses they went to a different time era,
yes,
a different trope. And then they had these little puzzles. Like, this to me was such a D&D game.
It was absolutely the ultimate quest.
Yeah, because you would go in, there were puzzles, you had different adventures, different dungeons.
And someone got sacrificed.
Yeah.
A lot.
There was a lot of sacrifice.
Some of it by choice, some of it not so much.
Yeah. But I love the tropiness of it. So which was your favorite house that they went into?
I am not sure. I really liked the slumber party.
Mm-hmm.
I really dug the slumber party. And I think, I don't know, maybe because that was my generation, closer to my generation. I think that.
I think I was kind of the same. It wasn't the slumber party I did also really like the, I think it was the 70s one, the music one where they had to where you finally figure out where the ballad comes from. Yeah. I really liked that. I loved the use of music. I thought that the recording that they made was actually pretty cool. It felt like it belonged in the times they were using it. Alice's story to me was like one of the most heartbreaking.
I would have watched a whole movie of just that story.
Oh my gosh. I love Alice so much.
I totally would have watched a whole thing of just that story.
I also want to know more about Jen's life, you know?
Yeah, we didn't learn enough about her.
No, there was definitely things that happened, and I feel like there's a lot more we could have learned.
Well, let's hope she's coming back in season 2.
Yes, let's hope. So things finish off, you know, they go through the road, they discover it's not real. But things end off with Jen gets her powers back, I think, right?
She does. Yes. Because she takes them.
Yes. And Agatha is death or ghosty or whatever. She's a ghost thing.
She's technically a ghost at the moment. Sort of, kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, she's still cheating ultimate death.
Absolutely.
Or cheating on death. Maybe both.
I think both. Yeah. Both is good. And Billy wants to find Tommy.
Which is actually very sweet.
Yeah.
I think that's very sweet. Like, he has this whole emo punk teen look going on when he's outside the road. And I get that. If you were slammed into someone else's body, you'd probably be feeling that way too. But the underlying wish is just so sweet.
So I am excited. I honestly wasn't sure that they were going to do a season 2.
I could be wrong, but I'm fairly certain there will be a season 2.
Yeah, no, I'm excited.
It's popular enough and there's been enough demand, and they left the story open.
They did.
That even if there isn't currently ordered a season 2, I think it's logical that they'll do one in some fashion.
Let me go to the episode guide and see what IMDb has for season 2. Oh, season 2. It has a spot for it, so there is a possibility.
Because otherwise they wouldn't have it.
Yeah, it doesn't have a date. It doesn't have a title. It doesn't have a plot. It just has a space. So it is still possible.
Yes.
And I'm here for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I would also be here for any of the other characters being explored in another fashion.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I will say that I think
or at least Jen showing up in another show.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the downsides of the Marvels for the whole MCU is that they took things that happened in a TV show and put it into a movie. And I think that unless you had watched that TV show and understood that character, actually 2 TV shows, because there was Ms. Marvel and then there was Monica Rambeau from there. I think that was a step too far for some fans. I loved it because I consumed all of that media, but
Absolutely.
It is getting to the point where instead of just going to a movie and understanding what's happening in that movie or that franchise, you have to see everything. And we're getting to the point where this is the reason I stepped out of comics back in the day is I would have a comic that I loved, but then I had to read 6 other comics to understand what's happening.
But on the other hand, at least they're not doing what DC is doing and doing a new origin story for every character every time.
And doing reboot after reboot after reboot. And, what you watched on TV has nothing to do with what's on screen.
Exactly. So, I mean, there's got to be a happy medium.
Now we're going to get this repeat offender.
Oh, God.
Although I will say it is worth watching, if only for watching old man Michael Keaton.
I was going to say the same thing.
Because that is the only reason I watched it. And that's what I loved about it. I really hated the character of the Flash in that show. I thought he was petty. He was selfish. He was short-sighted. He was not a hero.
No.
But Michael Keaton was, just great. And then there's that one bit where you get to see, flashes, if I may, of, different universes and different parts of the multiverse. And so like you saw things in the DC verse and that were like, yes, finally, like we finally see, Nick Cage as Superman.
Which I liked. I actually thought it was pretty cool.
That's all I want to see of that. I don't want to see any more.
No, that's enough of that.
Yeah,
we saw it. We're done.
We're good. But
yeah, Michael Keaton was what made that movie for me too. Otherwise it was just like, oh God, do I have to finish this?
My big criticism of Batman, he addressed. Like, I don't need to be Batman. I'm invested in social programs.
Exactly.
That's always been my thing. Like, Batman's just selfish.
Well, I mean, it's probably kind of fun when you're not getting, shot at and stabbed and thrown off buildings.
I am the knight.
You do that well.
I've had a lot of practice. But yeah, so there, I will say that there is a little bit of, to continue a story, you have to go to another show, another movie, another this, another that. And that can get really tiring. I think
it gets a little overmuch and it gets confusing, and back and forth between TV and movie is just.
And when they want to take something so complex as that, because the TV shows, you
have space.
You have space, you can digest it, you can really get into it. And then when you move it into the movie format, you have under 2 hours to talk to
well, no, not for Marvel. They have like 2.5, but still.
Yeah, but still, you don't have enough time to get into.
No, it's got to be highlights.
Yeah. And it's like, I'm supposed to care about these 2 characters, but I just don't have the time. I haven't gotten to know them enough to care. Yeah.
the one thing I do like about Agatha is that they took the time. We got to see all of the different characters. We got to see their relationships evolve. We got to see their relationships fall apart. I really liked that they weren't pristine in every scene. They were mucky and dirty and messy and really unattractive at times. And they were cool with it.
I will say it was a little dark, like visually.
We had to change the contrast in our television so that it was like super bright, and then we would have to go back to other shows and fix it.
Yeah, that is one thing I'm not a big fan of. As somebody with visual impairments, I don't like it when that, like, I get it that you're in a dark place, but there's other ways to light it. This was a problem that we had with Game of Thrones towards the end, and it was like, guys,
it was a problem with Game of Thrones. It was a big problem with Sabrina.
Yeah.
And
bad though, I think, because they lit her up a lot.
I felt like they could have had some better lighting in general. It was even a problem in the latest incarnation of Star Trek. So
yeah.
And I mean, yes, I understand that you want this to be dark so it feels grittier or scarier or just deeper, but we have to be able to see what's going on.
The idea that, like, and we've discussed this on the podcast before, but like Discovery and even Strange New Worlds, like that there's no lights on the bridge. Come on. That's ridiculous.
Well, I mean, and people are like, well, because you want the displays to be the brightest thing in the room, but they don't have to be the only brightness in the room. We have to be able to see what's going on.
Yeah. I
want to see people tripping if they're going to keep it that dark.
Why did the displays have to be the brightest thing in the room? Imagine if you walk through your office and you had all the lights were off and just glowing monitors. Like, no,
well, I mean,
nobody wants to work there.
Any ophthalmologist will tell you, you shouldn't have your monitor be the brightest thing. It should be bright, but you should have ambient light.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't like an overhead light. My office does not have an overhead light. I have a little lamp there that kind of gives me that ambient light. But people need to be able to see things. And it just, so it drives, I think that we can do better with lighting. Just because you're trying to set a dark tone does not mean everything has to be dark. Let's go to TNG as an example. So Next Generation, there are only 4 lights. It's a very dark scene, but you can see everything that's important.
You can see everything that's important. And yes, the corners are shadowed as they should be.
Yeah. But characters
you don't
are lit.
feel like you can't see the characters' expressions. Mm-hmm. Or if they're holding something or turning something or operating a prop,
especially
you can tell what they're doing.
To be important to the story.
Right?
Like, imagine Picard saying there are 4 lights and you can barely see the lights, or that's all you can see are the lights. Like, you can't see his pain on his face.
No, it wouldn't be as effective. One thing I do want to go back to, because you had asked about the favorite houses. I absolutely love the Tarot in Lilia's episode. I absolutely love that. I love that there was that whole Alice in Wonderland falling through everything element to it. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I think their literary references were as on point as their Marvel references. Yeah.
On point with all the swords.
Well, okay. That was an unintended pun, but it worked.
I love it. But yeah, I think that each of the houses were just done so well. And it just seems like so much fun. They were kind of like escape rooms.
Yes, they absolutely were. They were absolutely escape rooms.
But in a good way, in a good story.
It's not a bad thing. It was the conceit they needed to have.
Yeah. And I loved that they every house, while it was a puzzle quest, it was all right, we're going into an escape room, there's a puzzle to solve. What it did was it pulled a truth out.
Yes.
And everybody learned a little bit more about someone, and they were all designed for one of them specifically.
Oh, absolutely.
And that I thought was really cool. All right, DMs out there, that's kind of neat. I like that.
Not just DMs, writers too.
Yeah, writers too. But I'm talking about how I want to play in a game like that. I will say that over the Christmas break, we went for Epiphany. We went to my family's house, and half my family, we do a D&D game. We call it our Epiphany game. This is the first year we did it after Epiphany. Usually we do it the night before. I kind of like it the day after. my brother took over DMing. Usually it's my brother-in-law. My brother took over DMing, and halfway through, or maybe a third of the way through the game, my brother-in-law goes, "This is Die Hard." And we're like, and he goes, "Yep, finally." And everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, you spoiled it." And he's like, "No, I've put so many clues." And then he walks us through all the clues to let us know that we've been playing Die Hard in D&D. And then
that's too funny. That's perfect though.
We get to a puzzle at the end of it, and my brother had designed it specifically knowing our characters. And then my brother-in-law, who is not the character who should be doing it, just puts his hands on the puzzle, and it's like, oh goody.
That's fantastic.
Great. It was fantastic. So, when that is done, it can be really well. But here's the thing. Your players might screw you up anyway.
This is true.
And you might have to change on the fly what you're going to do because, that character just doesn't have the wisdom or intelligence.
I want to see someone market now series escape rooms.
Market what?
Series escape rooms, where it's not like you don't go to just one. You have to go through several to go through your day.
Yes. You escape to this, to that, to that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I did one as a part of a work retreat, and it was on topic. You had to find clues in our products and things like that. But you had to solve one puzzle to get to another puzzle to get to another puzzle. But we were all doing it in a giant university classroom. So we had to go, there were different boxes that we'd have to unlock, but we had to get the code, and it was really
fun.
cool. Yeah, that was probably the coolest experience I have had with that. I've never done one of those official escape rooms. They do kind of feel a little tchotchke to me at this point.
They do one on the Star Trek cruise, but we never did it because the wait list was just crazy.
Oh yeah. But I bet you'd slay that. I mean, come on, with your knowledge.
I would try. If Fuzzy was on my team to do all the STEM stuff, sure. I downplay. I'm actually very good at math and science. It's just not my expertise.
But I mean, it's Star Trek themed, so it would be very much knowledge of the shows.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So there's not a lot of, So
no, but I mean, you're on a ship with 3,000 other Trekkies, so everyone has that level of knowledge.
By the way, just to give you a little bit of flavor, as I'm talking to Melissa, I'm looking over her head at her display of her Star Trek dolls.
They're not
And
all.
when I mean dolls, they're 12-inch dolls.
Oh, I've got the Spock Barbie. It's actually from Barbie.
That's awesome.
I also have Captain Jack Sparrow.
And like a good toy fan, they are out of their boxes because good toys do not belong in plastic prisons.
The only action figure I have, the only doll that I have that is still in a box is Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Oh, she doesn't
just because I haven't figured out where I want to put her yet.
Gotcha. But other than that, it's just, us two middle-aged ladies up in bonnets. Yeah. But, so getting back to, Agatha, because of course tangents happen. I think that there's a lot that can be done with these characters, and I would really like to see more of it. And hopefully that whatever they continue on with continues this whole relationships between women and how
it is so rare that you see an entire series with women where they're not. I mean, the entire series passes the Bechdel test with flying colors.
Yeah, the only boy they talk about is Teen.
Right, but they're not in a relationship with him, so it's okay. Well, they're not in a romantic relationship with him. So it doesn't count.
I mean, technically it counts, but whatever. It doesn't matter.
But it doesn't count in the way that...
Plenty of conversations they're not talking about Teen.
Right, and when they are talking about Teen, they're trying to figure out who he is. They're not trying to date him.
Yes. And unlike The Craft, which is, to me, it's like the reverse of the Bechdel test, because none of the men have any conversations about women.
Right.
Or conversations where women aren't involved. And also, it does not pass the reverse of the sexy lamp, because none of the men, if you replaced him with a sexy lamp, would fulfill the same purpose. Teen, if you replaced him with a sexy lamp, would not fulfill the same purpose also. So
it would not.
Even better.
Yes, it is.
More balanced. I do kind of love that about the craft, by the way, that it is the reverse of the trope, and that
Yeah, but we need that sometimes.
Yeah,
we need that sometimes. Plus, it's a fun movie.
It's another witchcraft show. But I
think it's probably the first witchcraft thing I ever saw that wasn't just like Bewitched.
I'm trying to think. I think The Craft was,
or at least the first one I'm cognizant of. I may have been exposed to other things. Does that make sense?
Foundational for a lot of people in our generations. And I kind of wish there was something like that for the new generation, although they can still just go to and watch The Craft. It holds up, by the way.
It really does.
But I do kind of feel like this is a successor to The Craft, because if you grew up loving The Craft, you definitely are going to love this.
It is a spiritual successor in many, many ways.
Yeah. And it gets into those female relationships. And what I like about this is, this is also kind of now that I'm thinking about it, it's kind of the reverse of The Craft, because The Craft, they all start out and they're friends, and by the end they destroy each other.
Right.
In this, they start out as enemies, and by the end they build each other up.
They build each other up. Like I said, they're not friends, but they're absolutely sisters. And there's a difference.
Yeah. And they also learn very quickly that when they work together, they are stronger together.
Yes.
And that stronger together and working with one another and not infighting is a powerful message, I think.
What I also like, though, along that line, is that in working together, they're not giving up their individual identities. They're still very much themselves, but they're finding out that they need all those parts to make the whole.
They're not sacrificing who they are.
No.
But they are able to repair the damage that they've sustained by working together as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's very well put.
I do kind of want to, since we are talking about The Craft and Bewitched, I do want to talk about the closing credits.
I love the closing credits.
Every episode, they're a little bit different, but the closing credits have all the pop culture references to witchcraft. Like, you got Lisa Simpson as a witch. You've got Fairuza Balk from Nancy from The Craft. You've got Bewitched. You've got so many little references. It is wild.
Can we also talk about their choices for closing music? Because the songs they chose for the closing credits every time were, I want that soundtrack.
Yeah. Yeah. The soundtrack is actually, let me look up the soundtrack.
Is there one?
Well, I know that there is one. That's in so I'll look. But yeah, I want the soundtrack for sure. I'm trying to, I know there's great audio, but I want to pull up some of the songs that, apparently it's even out on vinyl. Fantastic. One of the things that I remember seeing was that the composer was Christoph Beck.
Yes.
Who was the composer for Buffy.
Yes.
And I knew right away, I was like, ooh, that is going to be fantastic. All right. So apparently there's volume 1 and volume 2.
Yeah, I'm seeing that as well.
So I'm very excited. So we've got Agatha's theme. You've got the Ballad of the Witch. Let's find out. A lot of these are just score. I'm seeing a lot of score.
Yeah, most of it is score, but I'm
wondering if volume 2 has the...
No.
It's
got it's got yet more versions of the ballad.
Well, yay.
I don't know. It kind of grows on you.
Yeah. No, I mean, I do like the different versions, but...
Including a pop version at the end.
And the Japanese version.
Yeah.
I do like that.
There's that one website that lists all of the songs that are in television shows that I never remember the name of the website.
I'm going to find it. Here we go. Well, Deadline has one. So
The Wrap has one also.
Okay, great. So first episode is Seekest Thou the Road, which is the first version of it.
We've got Season of the Witch as the closing credits.
Donovan. Yep.
Yes.
Then we've got we close up with Ballad of the Witch's Road, which is
the cast
doing that. Heads Will Roll by the Yeah Yeahs,
which I thought was perfect.
Yeah, Absolutely.
Episode 6 is Hava Nagila.
Yes, because that's when we find out about his bar mitzvah.
Bar mitzvah.
Yes. Episode 5 has You Should See Me in a Crown by Billie Eilish.
I mean, the soundtrack is amazing. Episode 7, Time in a Bottle. I thought that was perfect.
Oh, especially considering the crossover with Quicksilver from the Fox universe.
Yes.
And then I don't have anything after episode 7. Do you have anything after episode 7?
I do not, but there's another website, so if I find it, I will send you the link.
Yeah. But I mean,
I should have thought to prepare.
I didn't think about the closing songs. That's my problem. Yeah.
I tend to respond to music first in almost anything, and there was so much music in this all through it.
Yeah, it was great.
I mean, it wasn't a musical, but the music was integral to the story.
At one point, we have Visions by Plastic People.
Yeah.
All Odds by Wild Signal. Like, honestly, I just need a mix of this. Like, somebody make me, I need a mixtape. That's what I need. I need a mixtape.
Spotify playlist would work.
Yeah. Spotify.
It's not as good. I'll bring you a CD.
But I am 100% all in on the music of this. The closing was great. Is there anything else you think we haven't covered? I know there's tons of trivia that we didn't cover, but I don't.
There is an Instagram site that goes through all of the costuming.
Mm-hmm.
And I will send you the link so you can include it in show notes, because I think it's absolutely worth going through because the costuming was very specific.
Yes. The costuming was great.
I mean, the one where they're all iconic witches was fantastic, but even the other episodes where they're just in every house, the costuming matches the house.
Yep. And it's just so perfect. Oh, I did find, one thing. Apparently Joe Locke, or Locke, I'm not sure how you pronounce his last name. He's from Broadway. That's why we don't have many credits from him. He's done a bunch of stage productions, but
please tell me he's played Jack in Into the Woods.
I don't know, but I do know that he was in,
because he'd be perfect for it.
He was in Sweeney Todd with Patti LuPone.
I think I remember reading that now that you're saying it.
Yeah. So.
Oh, and can I just say one thing? In the first episode where they're singing, you do not tell Patti LuPone that she is pitchy.
Yes, I thought that was hysterical.
You just do not do that. Even if she is pitchy, you don't do that.
I think that was a great gag.
Oh, it was fantastic.
I love it. I think that was fantastic.
And because I'm very stuffy, I just want to enunciate so that your listeners understand that's pitchy with a P.
Yes, with a P.
My pop filter is going to hate me.
All your plosives. But I would say, what would you give this? Like, what would be your rating?
If I had rated it on the first 2 episodes, probably a 5, because it was a slow build for me. And I will say, I think this is a show that is better savored than binged.
Yeah.
Because you really need time to sit with it and digest it. And even if it's just like 1 episode a night for a week and 3 days, I think it just works better like one at a time.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, I would give it a really strong 9.5. Like, I don't like to give anything a perfect 10 because I'm just that way, but I think it's definitely into 9.5 territory.
I'm in the 8.5 ish. But yeah, I think that it's quite good. It's not like the best series I've ever seen, but it's higher in my regard for me as a middle-aged woman. So I think that's really.
You know what? I'm going to say 9, not 9.5, because my 9.5 show is actually Ms. Marvel.
Oh, that is much better. I love Ms. Marvel.
That is my favorite Marvel series ever.
Yeah.
So yeah, 8.5, 9. I think it's in there.
Yeah. I'm
again
gonna give it I'm gonna give it an 8.
That's fair.
I'm gonna give it a whole number. I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10 sigils on team.
Okay. I'm going to then give it 8.5 tarot cards, but the one that's the half is reversed.
There you go. I love it. Love it so much. But definitely worth watching. So if you have listened all the way through and we've spoiled everything for you, it's still worth watching. Because the chemistry, I think, is my favorite part.
Oh, so we didn't spoil it in order.
No, we really didn't. We just kind of, that's kind of how these things go.
I want to add one more thing though, real quick.
Yeah.
Once we know that Rio is deaf, they do the overlay of like the Katrina mask over her.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved that choice because they could have gone with classic Grim Reaper. They could have gone with just a haggard woman, but they used the actress's look and the culture of the character.
Yeah.
To choose how they represented her as deaf. And I really thought that was cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I also kind of want to see, I kind of want to see a little bit more about the survivors of WandaTown.
Yeah.
I still think there's more that can come from Emma Caulfield. I was glad that she was in this, but I really want to see more.
There wasn't enough of her.
No, never enough. But we did get Deborah Jo up. So that was
good. That's true. Can you imagine the two of them in a series together?
Like legit
extended
interacting? Yes.
Yeah.
I would love that. Absolutely.
Like they would have to play like mother and daughter.
Oh.
Okay, now I'm gonna see that. I think we're gonna have to write that now.
I could see that. That could be really good. I also love there's so many little funny moments in this show, but like the opening with episodes, like when she comes out and she's all naked and the neighbor's like, okay, Agatha. Like everybody knows that she's been in this catatonic state and they just kind of let her do whatever because they're like,
do your thing.
They have no idea like what.
There's no appropriate response to her.
No. And they don't really understand what or who she is because they were all just trapped in that nightmare as well.
Exactly.
So
no, I definitely think I could see like a webisode, like a web series where it's just, or like 5-minute things with all of them going through therapy after.
Oh gosh. Yeah. Yeah. Like office style therapy snippets.
Yeah. Can we get Michael Dorn to play the therapist as he did in Castle? Because that would be perfect.
Ooh, that would be fun. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone. This is what we thought, and we probably rambled on quite a bit, but that's okay. Let us know what were your thoughts of Agatha all along, and what are kind of your takeaways or what you'd like to see in the future. Oh, do we have it's a movie? We have to pair it with a meal.
Oh, well, it should be something in a cauldron.
Soup.
I would say absolutely, because soup is magic spells, right?
I know exactly what I'm going to do with this. I know. Okay. I'm so excited. It just popped into my head. Traveler stew. If you go to the recipes by listeners folder in my Google Drive, I have a link to it in all of my 12 days of podcasting episodes. There is a recipe for Traveler Stew by Paulette Jackson, which is to me super magical. And it works with green witches because it is vegetarian, but it is a stew that has Brussels sprouts in it. And for some reason that just feels right and homey, and it will help you while you're traveling on the road.
Oh, I think that's perfect. That's absolutely perfect.
But yes, and all comes from you saying cauldron. I mean, it has to be a stew.
It has to be a super
stew. Soup is definitely magic. I mean, we're building, we're taking things and transitioning them into something new in a cauldron. We sprinkle in our magic ingredients. We make sure you put in the bay leaf, even though nobody knows what it does. It really does change the flavor, if it's fresh. And we say our magic words over it, and magically we can make people feel better.
Plus, all of our recipes came from our parents and grandparents and friends.
And it comes down from generation to generation. Yeah. Soup is magic. All right. Well, again, that's what we thought. Let us know what you thought. And thanks for joining us. Bye. Nutty Bites is produced by Nimlas Studios under a Creative Commons Attribution No Commercial Non-Derivatives 3.0 International License. That means you can't change it without my permission. You can share it and send it to your friends. Just link back to me, my site, and everything. We live at nimlas.org, which has links to everything social media, including facebook.com/group/nuttybites and patreon.com/nukejoss, or call 347-NUTTY42.